Welcome to the Cyber Call, the podcast by Ride of Boom for managed service providers looking to stay ahead in an ever-changing world of cybersecurity. Each week, we dive into the latest threats, trends, and real-world strategies to help MSPs protect their clients and grow their businesses. Let's build a safer, stronger community together.
All right, welcome everybody. Just going to type in here, make sure you guys can hear and see us. Okay. Just give me a yay, nay as we let everybody kind of catch up. There's always just a touch of a delay with Restream in terms of when we hit go, the other channels like YouTube and LinkedIn, I think there was about a 15 second or so delay. So, While we're letting people come in, I'm going to do something a little different because of the guests that we have. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it, everybody letting us know. Thanks, Ann. Normally, Phyllis, obviously a long time co-host, but we have some new faces today filling in. I thought apropos for today's session with Dean. So with that, Jonathan, let me start off with you for people that are joining here right now. A little bit about yourself, your background, and in the channel. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Andrew. And first of all, let me just say how I'm super psyched and fanboying out a little bit being on this. I love the cyber call. I am consistently in awe. I let you know this right before the call that you do this, you pull this off every single week, and that you have such great guests involved, that you cover such important topics. Last week with CMMC being a huge one too. Anyway, very happy to be here. In terms of who I am and why I'm here, I'm director of community at Ninja One. I've been with Ninja for about 7.5 years now. And really have just made it my mission to get to know the space. How can Ninja One be involved in the right ways and contribute? How can we really provide not just for our own customers, but the MSP community overall? How can we engage in the right ways? It's an amazing community, really super lucky to be here. Prior to Ninja, I was at an endpoint security startup. So I do have a little bit of a security knowledge, nothing like the other folks on the call though. And then likewise marketing, I was telling Dean, I am constantly trying to help out our partners with how they can do marketing better. The one area that I know I'm like many others, I don't leverage enough is LinkedIn. So I am selfishly a panelist, but also a rabid attendee of this live stream. It's going to help me out a lot too.
Yeah, for sure. I think all of us are excited about this. I'm looking forward to learning from Dean. I know I do. I always love hearing his perspective on this because it is not something easy. And I know if you're posting on LinkedIn or doing anything around LinkedIn, there is no question the algorithms change, and this is not a not your grandma's Oldsmobile, as they say, like it used to be. All right, so Alan, I think you've co-hosted with us before, and it's been a while though. So please share a little bit about yourself and your background, and we'll move forward.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, it has been a while. I think the last time I was on the cyber call was when we had the fires go through Los Angeles.
Yes.
About disaster recovery here in the SoCal area. So yeah, we're a managed service provider located here about 35 miles northwest of LA. Been in the area for quite some time. Focus that we primarily work with is IT and OT environments within cities, water districts, manufacturing. I absolutely loved the session that I attended at the Ride of Boom with Dean earlier this year, where we talked about LinkedIn marketing and learned a little bit more about how to stand out. There is so much noise out there on LinkedIn today, and it is hard to maintain relevance, I believe, in the LinkedIn community. So like Jonathan said, I'm excited to be part of this call, not just for some of the questions that I can send to Dean's way, but also what we can get out of it, both at All Connected among our marketing team and for the broader MSP community.
All right. Well, Dean, I'm going to hold off on your intro. Phyllis, I'm going to assume everybody knows you. and then just do a touch of banter real quick here, because I think one of the important stories that we should just talk briefly about is Kimi and the new release from Kimi 3, the new release from Moonshot. And Dean, you were mentioning that, I know you're in the UK, and I'll put this URL in for everybody to take a look at, and I'll stop sharing now. But Dean, this is all the talk you're hearing. And the reason I wanted your perspective on this is because, of course, no one would ever use AI on LinkedIn to create content or anything like that. But, one of my perplexing, my mind just doesn't shut off questions is, what's this going to do to the markets of AI? Because for the security conscious person, they're certainly going to be, thinking through and more than likely not download a Chinese model. For the company that isn't necessarily security savvy, which I would argue are most, they'll be like, hey, freeze for me. I can download this. I can shut it off. I can air gap it. I can, use this model for coding locally. Why not? But give us your perspective, what you're hearing, because it's big news on your side of the pond, so to speak, right?
Yeah. So the UK loves anything like Chinese. Like, we've got more Chinese cars than anything else. So, one of the things you see is, there is a lot of AI hype. Everybody's saying Claude will change your life. And everybody's also complaining, if you go into the depths of Reddit, about it feels like Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT have got dumber, or at least got slower. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it does feel that way, like they're taking longer to do things. And everybody knows that there is a massive, how do we make this profitable problem? And then you've got influencers saying, you can use this one, it's better for free. And why would you not do that? Like, why would you not do that? And you mentioned stuff like air gapping and all this kind of stuff. Majority of people don't even know what that means.
Right.
So they just go, it's software. What possible risk is it to me?
Right.
Well, they'll just go for it. And there's, you scroll through LinkedIn, you scroll through YouTube, and it's like, no, this is the one. And the weird bit is, a lot of the people talking about this and promoting this are actually American and US based content creators saying this is better than Claude.
Well, that's what the independent tests show, Dean. Now, so everybody don't jump on me, not the most recent Claude release and the most recent OpenAI release. However, just before those, they are saying K3 is superior, period. Mm-hmm. And this is not them saying it, it's independent saying it. Jonathan, perspective, anything on your mind?
I feel like one thing I've really come to appreciate about the MSP community is when it comes to ourselves, like, everyone's super skeptical. Like, everyone is pretty salty and skeptical. And that's where my mind goes is, okay, like, we've got some influencers. Like, first of all, there's multiple things happening. There's like, everyone wants to have the new wave, right? We figured out this is a great way to get attention and to get clicks and likes and subscribes and all those things, is to talk about the latest model. And so this is really, everyone's going to jump on that, right? Once they get a whiff of there's something new to talk about there. And then there probably is something deeper where I wouldn't rule out, I'll put on my tinfoil hat a little bit. I wouldn't rule out more intentional influencer marketing to steer some conversation around this. But I think the big concern or risk is really obviously end users, right? The people who are not as skeptical and who are not security minded. I think you're absolutely right, Dean. I mean, it's free. It's new. Everyone's talking about it. I think overall, where we started with being able to talk about the security concerns around all these tools, the more this goes on and the more tools that come out there, it seems to me anyway that the more people see these are mainstream things now, and the risk tolerance they have is probably lower. Like they're higher. They're really going to jump in and try out the newest things unless they are intentionally, unless there's guardrails put in place for them.
Yeah, for sure. Alan, Jonathan's saying that MSPs are skeptical. I can't imagine that. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Yeah, it's really challenging to stay up on the continued releases of models one after the other after the other. We're working really hard just on the putting the right governance in place and choosing the right platforms that do need to be locked down inside of the environments that we have with our clients. And I'm in full agreement. It is very difficult. We did bring on an AI workflow strategist into the organization that's helping with a lot of the, I would say more of the cadence and the formality of adopting different platforms into the organization. But still, it is a lot to keep up with. And it's a lot to keep up with when you've got, I don't know, I would almost say a massive heightened sense of urgency to adopt the latest and the greatest AI models from week to week or from month to month. It really is fast forward mode. I'm particularly excited about a meeting that we've got scheduled with some really close clients this week, just to open up the floor and listen to them for 2 hours on what really matters to them. Because I think getting that feedback is super important in our industry too.
Cool. Phyllis, I'll close this out with you. Well, thank goodness we've really emphasized the importance of locking down CUI after last week. So knowing we were on by the way, that was a little sarcasm if you guys couldn't tell. In terms of, it's a military arms race, right, with AI. And, China does things like very strategically, right, in terms of, not only their military moves, we just saw, for example, in the so-called, energy crisis that we should have had oil in theory up to $200 a barrel. And yet China strategically just played like the most brilliant game. If you follow what they did from an energy perspective, played one of the most brilliant chess moves you've ever seen in your life, in terms of not being, creating demand, if you will, with the largest consumer of oil in the world. So knowing they are, very strategic in what they do, and your background, at the agency, is there more to it? Or is this just, hey, we're just releasing an open source model because, we think that's the right thing to do here? Call me crazy.
I mean, there could be, we know commercial companies do this. Let's offer it for free.
Right.
We're going to hook you, and then you're going to get the paid for. Additionally, there are going to be the people who just kind of, use it through their browser. Everything goes back to servers in China, right? And, so there are these warnings. Don't put your financial data, don't do this and the other. I think what Alan mentioned is very important, is the governance around it. How is it that your users know, don't use this in your browser? Don't use just this free client that it's going to go back to China.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because, a lot of times what organizations or people do, and I do, I just want to test it out.
Right.
I want to see, I'm not going to download a whole thing to my local machine. I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of use the freeware version that, probably is available in my browser, or this, that, and the other. And all that data is going back to a server in China. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a smart play. Give it away for free, get people hooked, a lot of good publicity, and then, see where you can go from there.
Well said. So I'll just leave it with this post, which I think I've put in before, but this Wired magazine post on, thousands of people vibe coding and connecting their data sources and exposing them to the internet. This threat researcher found about 5,000 of them where you had sensitive data. So we know that won't happen, Phyllis, here either.
Right, well, exactly.
And Andrew, I'm glad you brought that up. And something that popped into my mind before we move on is, I mentioned kind of users being the predominant thing. We got to put guardrails in front of users. I'm curious to hear from Alan, Phyllis too, if you see this, folks who are watching. There's another group of people who are popping up. We used to worry about the owner's the business owner's nephew being the IT guy who's going to come in and do some stuff. Now the business owner's nephew is like vibe coding apps, and so there's a whole AI consultancy, custom dev, all that stuff. That to me seems like a whole nother wrinkle to all this. Those folks who may not think twice about, they want to use the latest and greatest, right? And so it's not just the users, but third parties that could also be contributing to the risk.
Yeah, that's fantastic point.
There's a really interesting, because obviously LinkedIn's rife for stuff like this and social media. There was this guy who posted, "I've quit paying Calendly and basically built my own Calendly app with Stripe integration and everything." And I actually went to our tech guy and said, "Is this actually possible?" "Oh yeah, it's possible." But you have no idea who's seeing all of those transactions, because who's maintaining the security of this thing? At least with Calendly, you've got some kind of big company paranoid about this. You're not going to have that same kind of firepower to protect all those payments and all those appointments and all that data.
Yeah, great point, Dean. And I promise last point on this is one of the things I really want to talk about with Phyllis and Mark at Cyber AccuView, who heads up the consortium of insurance companies at Right at Boom, and hopefully we'll have some others on this, Dean, is, when you fill out your cyber insurance questionnaire, you're filling it out as, Maverick, Dean's company. Hey, we do LinkedIn content. When Alan does it, he's, an MSP filling it out. Well, when you make your claim that we just got popped because you're an architect firm or a law firm that just got popped because we vibe coded, not so sure how that's going to go. And there's a lot of exclusions and riders getting put into the insurances. And I did a newsletter on this. You can Google Gallagher Reinsurance about this. And this is going to be a whole area that I think we're going to see a lot of heat over the next few years popping up. So, all right, let's get on into it. So I'll set the stage real quick here. As on the cyber call, it's typically about threat intel, vulnerabilities and compliance and all those fun things that we talk about here. One of the big challenges that MSPs have, if you think that keeps MSPs up at night, right, Alan? It's how do I get new customers? I mean, I got to believe as a business owner, right? That's one of the big things. And you and I have known each other 2.5 decades. In the 2.5 decades, you and I have known each other. I don't think that's changed. Fair, getting new business. So I wanted to, dedicate a session to this. And I think with due cause in that, Dean was a standing room only sessions, his 2 standing room only sessions at Right at Boom, being asked to come back, do boot camps this year, etc. And, as a result, I know a lot of people are now working with him, getting incredible results. And so I thought it was a really important time. I know LinkedIn frustrates the what out of me in terms of trying to, get, the right content, the right audience. And full disclosure, we've worked with Dean for the past year, and it's transformed the way in which we've been able to, attract new eyeballs and on our content. So I wanted to let you all hear from him directly on what he's doing. So with that, Dean, let me give you the floor, do a quick intro, and then I'll turn it over to Phyllis to start with the questions.
Cool. That was a hell of an intro anyway. It was a brilliant intro. You should come around the world with me and intro me. It'd be great. So I'm Dean. I founded my business in 2014 and decided to go all in on LinkedIn, and which sounds crazy at the time because nobody had a clue that it would become the beast that it was. Some people with tin hats thought LinkedIn was behind the pandemic, but it's served us well. And one of the terrible things for you guys watching is LinkedIn is constantly changing. One of the great things for me is LinkedIn is constantly changing. Otherwise, I'd be out of business. It is complicated, and hopefully today we're going to talk about some of the ways to kind of simplify it. But I think any given time, 300 people a month go through our workshops in person, and 2,500 go through online workshops a month. It's crazy.
Awesome, Dean. All right, Phyllis, let's get on into it here.
Yeah, no, I too am interested in what you have to say as someone who is social media averse. I grew up at the National Security Agency for 25 years, and I never really got on social media. It took me forever to get a smartphone because my phone was locked up in my car all day anyways. I was like, literally, I only switched to a smartphone when my flip phone broke in half. So that's, and my friends were like, finally, you can text. So I'm very excited that you're here, Dean, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say. And so let's go a little bit into your background, which I find fascinating. You're the son of a coal miner, and now you've trained, and we just heard some stats, over 150,000 professionals from 11 different countries. And so what did your first workshop teach you that a decade of agency work did not?
Oh, so I think the biggest thing with when we were doing the kind of moving into LinkedIn as kind of all in, I think the big thing was people didn't understand how the platform worked. And that's true still now. Yeah. And so when we were doing a lot of work with clients, they would question why we were doing it, because it didn't, often the stuff that we were doing didn't seem to make sense. And so I decided to go down the workshop route of training first, because people would be better informed about what they needed to do. And it was purely as a play, to be honest with you, it was a play as a lead magnet to sell my actual services, like an upsell opportunity. And then when you go, oh my God, this thing's out of control, to the point where more of your revenue comes from actually going and teaching salespeople and business owners how to do it. It was like, it just went crazy. Because I think once you understand how it works, it all gets easier.
Interesting. So your handle is at Social Selling Dean. So for everybody, at Social Selling Dean. So when did you know LinkedIn was the platform to move on and to go all in on? I mean, I think all of us, sorry to cut you off, on different social media platforms, see people on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, trying to like, hey friends, buy whatever, or I'm starting consulting, and LinkedIn is more business oriented. And then what made you realize, okay, this kind of platform will actually work?
So I started out on Facebook. That was my main channel. And what I slowly realized was a couple of things. Facebook, don't believe what people say. Facebook is still huge, but if you post or do something on Facebook, you have no control over where that goes. It is basically pretty much a passive platform. You put stuff out and hope it lands in the right place. The reason why I went on LinkedIn was because it's the only social platform where you have control over where and how you use it. You know who you're talking to. If you go on Instagram and somebody likes your post, you have no idea whether Daisy421 is the CEO of a company or just some random person. But on LinkedIn, you can know exactly who you're talking to. You can grow your network intentionally. And so it just gives you way more control over how you use the platform. Whereas the others, you just post and hope.
That's great insight. So, we've talked about how sales are getting harder. And so for an MSP owner in 2026, what is actually harder and what is just noise?
So I think every MSP has realized that selling your services is hard because somebody is already entrenched and you've got to either wait your turn or you've got to turf somebody out. That's how it works, right? Somebody has to lose it or you have to gain a brand new customer to the market. The brand new customers to the market are tiny compared to the people already out there. So you've really got to think about, and I'm going to say something that might get me hated by everybody. So sorry, Andrew, and hopefully you'll forgive me beforehand. The people who can make this happen quickly don't care about IT. The CEO and the CFO doesn't care. They just want to know everything works. And I'll bring a little LinkedIn tip in here for this, because this is something I see. The way algorithms work is by interest. So if you're sat there talking about endpoint this and endpoint that, which I don't know what an endpoint is, I have a rough idea, but if you talk to me about that as a business owner, I have zero interest in that. But if you want the CEO and you want to position yourself to have a more strategic relationship with your clients, you have to pique their interest. And that's a completely different type of content. It's a completely different message. You're actually competing more with business advisory than technical. So if you talk technical, LinkedIn will find the people who are interested in that. If you talk strategic and business and about what CEO, CFO is interested in, they'll find you. Very interest driven.
Can I say this something real quick? Alan, I want to pick on you here because you did the CCLS class, and analogistically, can you kind of reframe what Dean just said about why you think maybe a lot of these CISO conversations or security conversations go off track? It's very synonymous what Dean just, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, very much so. It reminds me in the CCLS track where we had our final presentation, and it was to a fake board about the breach that ended up happening and how it ended up happening. In our case, it was because of a lack of development governance that ended up happening in the organization. That organization needed development governance. They introduced bugs because of their fast development of code to the front lines without going through security protocols. And through all of that, you realize, it was great. We're beating each other up because if I'm presenting and I'm presenting too technical about that topic, my peers are telling me, Alan, that's too technical. We got to get you out of here. You got to get back on track and reach the business level. What does the business owner need to understand in regards to governance? What do they need to implement, to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And those were very, very business level discussions focused on growing enterprise value. They were not about endpoints like Dean mentioned. They were not about how to implement a framework. It was about how to make organizational change that mattered inside of that organization. So yeah, I absolutely love that.
Yeah. And Jonathan, I'm going to come to you because you do such a great job building your communities. You've got something like the who's who names, right, in your customer advisory board or your partner advisory council, different markets for each. But, I would imagine, or I shouldn't say I imagine, but can you give us some insights on what you've learned? Because, these are the biggest MSPs or some of the biggest companies on the planet and those. And it's not about, your RMM can, 42 seconds versus the other, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And my background's in content marketing too. So I kind of approach this from, I don't think anyone ever wakes up and thinking like, oh, I want to read a blog post or I can't wait to watch a webinar necessarily. It's more about the topic. It's more about who's involved. And so, the biggest thing that I've kind of learned is I approach things by looking at a platform, looking at different groups, paying attention to what does seem to be not just popular, but what people are actually responding to, who's being vocal, who are people in the right ways that people seem to respect and really respond well to. I want to try to be buddies with them, right? I want to loop them in. I want to find out how we can actually have a conversation. A big thing about a lot of people's outreach, I think it's just a matter of that, looking at whether, I know a lot of MSPs are focused locally. A lot of them are focused on verticals. And so seeing who's already out there doing their things as a marketer, I never want to be in the business of trying to change human behavior. I want to actually give people what they want. And then I notice who's leaning into being very active, and the more that I can engage with them and get conversations going, I feel like that's the biggest win. I'm curious, Dean, maybe you'll get into this. But another aspect of this is I feel like a lot of times when we talk about posting on social, we kind of default to, okay, we should be educational, right? We should show that we are very knowledgeable in our field and that we can be a trusted advisor. And so we know a lot, right? Showing off our expertise. And I mean, if you look across people's posts, it's not necessarily that sort of thing that performs the best unless you happen to like hit on a newsjacking moment. Like there's a big, very, like the CMMC last week example is a perfect example for that, right? Like a lightning rod topic. But otherwise, it's really more like, hey, we're shedding the light on something, an event where we got together with some other folks and we were tagging them, and those other folks are now responding and active in it too. And so it's more about like celebrating the networky aspect of it versus just strictly trying to approach as, hey, I want to use this as a platform to show my expertise.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different ways to skin LinkedIn, and obviously, if you're a salesperson, you have to approach it a little different than maybe a founder. But I think for most people, if you think about how business was done 30 years ago, it was about relationships. And if you think about how you build a relationship to the point where you can ask to catch up with somebody and talk business, it was very much about they know me and I know them. And you don't get that by posting educational content on LinkedIn. You might not like this, but if you post a dog photo in the office and, you'll probably have the best post in your life. And I am a massive kind of 80s fan. So I'm going to say something now, and I'm going to use an analogy. And this has been my favorite analogy since the new He-Man movie came out, right? And it is, if you ever watched the original He-Man cartoon, any of you watched it? It was always the cartoon, and then at the end, there was that weird, cheesy life moral lesson at the end where it's like, Oracle, you should never do this. We should always be kind. What most people do on LinkedIn is they do the weird life lesson. I'm going to teach you something at the end, rather than just tell the story where they realize you're good at what you do because of the way you told the story. So for an example, you're working on a project, onboarding a new client. Obviously, you can't share sensitive information, but what could you say that's interesting that might be relevant to a business that maybe they didn't see you could share in the story? And the read between the lines is they pick up, actually, you're pretty good at what you do because you understand a business challenge, not just the technical challenge.
Yeah, really.
And just to pick up on one more thing, Jonathan, you said about what they want. And this is a really powerful thing to think about. When I'm working with people, I have to spend some time with them thinking about what are they selling? Why do people want it? Not why do they need it? Because there's a huge difference between what somebody needs and what they'll pay for. And if you look at what's the business challenges that those kind of companies we're going after have, and how does what we do help them get to that? And then talk about how you can get them to that with that. It's very different framing. Often what they're trying to do is, and I say this, if you try and sell people what they need, you are basically flogging a dead horse.
Phyllis, why don't you flog away a few more here, and then we'll
Yeah, I actually think you all pretty much answered my last question, which Jonathan addressed, which almost every MSP profile says, we're your trusted technology partner. And so, like, what should they be saying instead?
Well, there's a real, we're your trusted technology partner. And who cares?
Take my word for it. I'm great.
As opposed to the opposite, right, Dean?
Right.
Yeah. There's a really interesting thing, right? There's no perfect business, right? There's no perfect MSP, but people will bring you in because whatever they're doing right now isn't meeting what they want. So if you start to map out what they really want and go, okay, actually what they need, what they're talking about, what this is the priority. Let's just talk about that as a priority. And what happens is, and I've seen this play out, when you've got businesses in certain verticals with major priorities, and you start to talk to what their priorities are and map it back to what you do, you then find that the incumbents or the people who are already there aren't talking about those things and go, well, why are you not talking about it? These guys are. And it puts you in a more strategic position to actually get business from people who are basically complacent.
So can you kind of give an example? Because I'm not really that technical, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, people in healthcare care about HIPAA compliance. Would that be it? Or is that too technical? So I'm just curious. Yeah.
So HIPAA compliance will obviously be a major thing in certain organizations. In the UK, we've got GDPR and stuff like that. So I'd be thinking about, okay, where's the weak point that a lot of these companies have right now? What's the weakness in that area, and tie it to a business goal? So it could be things like, you've got a plan to onboard more customers over the next year, or you can see on LinkedIn that they're growing massive headcount. And so when the headcount grows, one, they're adding a lot of people and their infrastructure is going to start to creak, and they're going to be acquiring a lot of data. You can figure all of that out from LinkedIn, and then you go in and go, look, you guys are growing really rapidly. You want to onboard more customers. You're carrying more data. What we'll do is look at actually what you're doing, your infrastructure right now, and is it the right stuff that's going to take you from where you are right now at 5 million turnover to 25 million? And, position your message around what's really going on in those businesses.
So a great example of this, Phyllis, and I'll hand this over to Alan, right, is we just talked about CMMC, right? We started off with what's going on, right? The DFARS clause has been in there for almost 10 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
But no one cared, right? Oh, pinky swear, right? It wasn't until we have CMMC and the potential that this exists in contracts and has to be validated by a third party, or your revenue spigot gets off. Now, what gets the C-suite's attention? DFARS, or, oh, by the way, we're going to turn off your revenue.
Right.
Now, right? It was the revenue. It's not the compliance.
Right. No, that's a great example. Thanks.
And I think one of the big missed opportunities with LinkedIn is you can see these organizations changing in front of your eyes. Because, I'll give you a class example. This is a bit sneaky, but this is something you can do, right? If you start to look at some of your competitors and some of their prospective clients, if you have a LinkedIn recruiter license, which is a little expensive, you can actually see people who are looking for work. You could see when a CTO or CIO starts looking for work and go, there's going to be upheaval there in a few months. Let's start building relationships. And you could actually target where there is these major changes going on in organizations, headcount going up, headcount going down, all of these things, rapid revenue growth. They start increasing the sales team. That's another good trigger to look at. If they start increasing marketing and sales, there's infrastructure that's going to be starting to creak.
Yeah.
So it's those kind of things you can start to look at. When a CEO changes, if a CEO changes, that means there is going to be major strategy change or major direction change. And it's all of these things going, how do we strategically use the platform? So we're not content creators. We're not pitch slapping everybody, but we are being like a sniper on LinkedIn to get what we want.
That's good OPSEC. That's what we would call it in the DoD.
Yeah. Alan, as we go to you, I think about what a good conversation to have with a CEO like yourself, right? You want to know about, hey, what's revenue rate of change look like, Alan? And if it's like, hey, yeah, we're doing good, we're we quarter over quarter doing this. Correct me if I'm wrong. More than likely, you're thinking of reinvesting in the company. You're thinking of bringing on more people. Is that, just like Dean said, right? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're tying into the major growth goals of the business.
Yeah.
We've talked about that a lot. There's a lot of these organizations that are using frameworks like Scaling Up, or they're using frameworks like EOS and Traction, and they've got their goals laid out for the year. They've got their 3-year plan. They know what they're going to be doing every week, every month with scorecard data. If you tie into those things, you're talking their language.
Yeah. All right, man. I'll let you ask Dean some questions here.
Yeah, so some of them, Dean, we touched on a little bit, and you've written that everybody says that the answer is post more, but I know you clearly don't buy it. You were talking about post and hope is not a good strategy. So, what's the actual answer?
So, I use content primarily as the trust builder. So I will post, but it's primarily so they know who I am. They can see that, read between the lines and understand what I do and why I do it. But the biggest drivers for me on LinkedIn are 3 things. Number 1, it's my live events. I do a live event a week, similar to you guys here. I do a live event a week. I get about 400 or 500 signups. And then my titles are really tied into the goals, the wants of my target audience. And then we have follow-up conversations with those people. And literally, we're just doing that same process over and over and over again. And I think when I was out in Vegas, I shared an example of one guy who's doing AI cloud and cloud consulting. And he did one with 400 people and closed $250,000 of business, because one of the things that happens when you do these live events is people actually pay attention and go, I'll check this out, see what they're all about. And content, long form content converts way better than short form. So they sit and listen to me for 40 minutes, and then I offer to have a conversation with them afterwards and see where it goes. So that's one. Number 2, the LinkedIn newsletter piece is really useful. I know, Andrew, you've started doing yours, which is a killer. And it's interesting. A lot of my competitors have started doing them. They ditched them and now brought them all back. But here's the really big point of why LinkedIn's important on long form content. AI cites LinkedIn newsletters more than any other source of long form bar Reddit. Yeah. So if you're starting to share stuff like that and people are starting to go, who's the best MSP in Las Vegas? Literally, it will list you out based on what you're putting out on LinkedIn. So that's long form content. And then I am a huge fan of what I call sniper outreach. It's 1-to-1, 100% personalized, mapped to their business. And I literally use Sales Navigator, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, to understand the metrics behind what's going on in their business, so that I can speak to them because their headcount's growing, new CEO, new CMO, new head of sales. I can figure all that out with Sales Nav. And then I go in with a very, very individualized message, and I get a 22% meeting booking rate from doing it. It's totally unscalable, but you don't need it to scale because the return's pretty neat.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is amazing. I like what you're saying, Dean, because you're not saying you're a trusted advisor. You're letting your audience draw the conclusion based on what they see with this content that comes out. Now, as I was kind of going through these things, the live events, the titles that you use, the follow-ups that you have with these people, the LinkedIn newsletter, if you didn't do the sniper outreach, what would kind of be the result?
So that I do them all in silos. So if I look at the LinkedIn events over the last 6 years, we've tracked about $10 million of revenue from the LinkedIn events. That's for us. Yeah. So that's what we've generated from the LinkedIn events. The sniper outreach, that is more our corporate work. So anything from 25,000 to biggest deal was $180,000 engagement with LinkedIn. And I know that sounds ridiculous that people are spending that kind of money on LinkedIn, but it's one of the primary channels to get to people now. So that they all have their place. The newsletters like are just a steady eddy. It's just trickle, 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 trickle. But they're all working in very different ways. So yeah, and I just want to throw one more thing into why I think LinkedIn is in a very interesting place. I don't know whether you've got kind of a new Android phone or a new Apple phone, but all of them are coming with AI built in. And they all have AI phone answering. I don't answer my phone anymore. The AI answers it, finds out who it is, and I can see it in real time, who it is and what they're saying, and I can choose to pick up or not. That means this is filtered. Google Workspace controls 50% of the B2B email traffic. Google Studio is now natively built in. I have Google Studio. It reads my emails, files all the ones that are not important, and literally sends me a chat message of the ones that are important I need to reply to and puts it in my task list. So that is what's happening, which means, I don't know, it's a grand conspiracy by LinkedIn. They made this happen. You know, what do they call it? The deep state or whatever.
The Illuminati.
Right? The Illuminati, that's it, yeah. But LinkedIn will be one of the easiest ways to get to prospects with one other: direct mail. Direct mail, return on investment. So it's going to be LinkedIn and direct mail are probably the easiest way to get to people, because the phone will be filtered and email will be filtered.
I've heard discussions about this, you know, like, are we going to get to a point where agents are selling to agents, basically? A couple of questions, if you don't mind, Alan. I don't want to step on your time here, but I just had a couple of logistical questions about the approach that you were talking about there, Dean. Mm-hmm. Streaming, you know, the live events, you're utilizing LinkedIn, so you're going live in LinkedIn. Is that right?
Yeah. And
then do you have, you know, it's something that we've seen too, having a repetitive, it's a great excuse to give, you know, reoccurring touch points for folks. What we've done is you know, using like a restream, like we're using now, you know, we can make sure it goes to multiple places, going to YouTube, and YouTube is huge for search too, and being cited. Mm-hmm. I just want to piggyback off your comment about AI tools citing. It's funny. It's like, the more and more we get to these artificial layers of things, we want to hear from real people what their experiences mm-hmm. are. And so I think that's why they're being trained on Reddit and YouTube and LinkedIn. We're seeing the same thing where they're showing up in citations all the time. So that makes sense. I've noticed personally the article approach that you've been helping Andrew with the newsletter and everything. That seems fantastic. Can you talk to me a little bit about the logistics there of you know, are creating these events, utilizing the content afterwards? I mean, this is going to kind of get into automation, maybe how you're using AI a little bit too.
Yeah. So I will go live to everything. So all at once, I'll set up a LinkedIn event, but I'll be live on YouTube, live on Facebook, live on Substack, be going everywhere all at once. And then what I'll do is take the transcript of that and I will break it down into what could be a newsletter. Not the whole thing, but elements. If you think a newsletter's like 3 to 5 minute read, like there's probably 5 newsletters in one 45-minute batch. So break it down. Then I'll take the video footage and convert it into 40-second clips and dump them on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram, but mainly there. So I'm doing all of this stuff from doing one piece of content. So literally everything.
Yes, a great point. Like case in point, Jonathan, like we had, you know, these 5 experts on CMMC, right? Last week with the emergency thing. Now, obviously that was a boon, right? Because you know, you can't expect to get that all the time. But as Dean said, we'll look at that transcript now and, you know, give everybody on LinkedIn, hey, let me boil it down for you, right? Here's the newsletter of all these 5 great minds on CMMC. So there's the content again.
Mm-hmm. I just spotted this on the comments there about somebody saying that they work with smaller businesses and they might not have that. I mean, smaller businesses don't have the resources for many of the big high-end stuff, but there's still their wants and there's still their scary moments of, I would argue it's more important that you understand those smaller businesses because they can make decisions way quicker. Like one of the pains of working with a large organization is, oh my God, they debate everything forever, right? But a small business where you can get the owner involved and go, right, let's map out, like, what are the key challenges they've got? And one of them is going to be literally one infrastructure, but the other one is managing people. Because now you've got, I don't know about you, right? But I've got some people that I know who are using AI and haven't got a clue. Like they're putting stuff out and it's like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? Right? You're going to have these people in your organization and these people are doing this on your equipment and your infrastructure. And it's like one person could randomly go and do something and like implode your business. I mean, we had something, it's a big high profile thing, but we had somebody who was one of our retailers here that was shut down for 90 days because of some random person doing something. And they literally lost hundreds of millions. So imagine a small business where this risk is probably harder to manage, like way harder to manage, but they've got to grow. And every business is looking at how do we do this more efficiently now because of AI. So it's like, let's be, how do we make your technology more efficient? So it's not cost effective. Your team and people are more efficient. How do we get rid of stuff? That's probably a really cool message for people because I'm sick of all the subscriptions we've got.
Yeah.
Dean, I got another question for you, and it's about, you were talking about that very focused sniper approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, you walk us through kind of the anatomy of an outreach message that will get a reply in the first line that guarantees that it gets ignored.
So what I do is I record a video message. And if anybody wants to message me, I'll send them an example. But when I record the video message, my headshot's in the corner and I'm over the top of something about their business. So what we call the visual hook is massive. They're like, what the hell is he doing looking at that? And then we don't just send them a video because that's a security risk in itself. What we'll do is we'll use Loom because most companies are familiar with Loom and go, oh, I know what this is and it's quite safe and everything like that. It'll get through all of the usual firewalls. And it is me talking. And I'll give you one example. We have a website here called Companies House, which is the list of all the major companies. And so what we'll do, what one of our professional services clients does is actually goes and records these little video messages, them headshot, and in the background are all their corporate filings. And it's just a really strong visual hook. And then basically we lead with what they want and show, and this is really important, we don't get into the weeds of what we do. We talk about the methods of how we help them get what they want. A method, an approach, a step-by-step approach to help them get more what they want and offer a call. Not, hey, we do this.
And these are going out like a cold, like, is it a cold, just in mail or?
Yeah, we always connect first. It's always good to connect first. And if we can, but bear in mind, 97.4% of people on LinkedIn don't post, they're consumers. We try and do whatever we can to kind of warm the relationship, but we rely on the fact that the message is timely. We've shown we've done research, we've put the effort in, and it's speaking to what they want. And that's why it works. Obviously, the more you can interact with that person, the better. But if I said to you, comment on your prospects' posts, in about 3-4 days' time, you'd come back to me and say, I don't know what to do now because most of my prospects don't post. That's perfectly normal. I think it's 57.5% of the platform are what we call lurkers, which is they just scroll, consume, watch, maybe comment on a few things, like a few things. They're the people you go after. The people who are posting are people with an axe to grind, great people to get to know, great people to network with, but often they're on there for their own reasons.
Yeah, and Jonathan, you see this in communities, right? Think about your communities. Like, you got, I don't know, what, 16,000 in your Discord channel, and I guarantee you the majority are just consumers, and I'm not going to say lurkers. No one will be a lurker on Ninja. But
oh yeah. No, for sure. And I mean, we've got some of the really active folks, a couple of them in here right now. But the watching, and I mean, it's more I have to remind myself that a lot, where to your point, Dean, like it's fun to engage with the folks who are already super engaged, and I think that there's extreme value in that and helping broaden the reach and getting them involved. But you do have to remind yourself, especially if you're trying this out and you're feeling a little discouraged, that a lot of folks are just busy, and like they'll come to it, and like they this visibility really can build up, and it may take, it's not the first time. It takes kind of a routine. You got to be persistent with it. But
about the 11th time of you saying something, people actually remember what you've said. It takes 11 times. And I'd just add a little point in here, and I know maybe time's tight, but just a quick thing about the way the algorithm works, because it's really important. The way the algorithm works now is it's reading your profile and reading what you talk about and looking for who's this for. It's looking for the consistency between your profile and who you say you are and what you do. And is that consistent with what you talk about? So even if you switched content today and started talking about business challenges, if your profile's still full of the technobabble stuff and you don't name the crowd and all of those specifics in your profile, you'll still not get found for it. So it's really important your profile is aligned with what you're talking about. Otherwise, you'll end up probably having some good posts talking about SOC this and, attack surfaces and all this kind of stuff, but it'll all be other people who love it, love attack surfaces and cybersecurity as well. If you want CEOs, you need to optimize your profile for CEOs as well.
Andrew, do I have time for one question?
No, you go. You more than probably, hopefully two.
Well, this could be a big one. I don't know. Hearing all this, Dean, and this has been awesome. If your folks are watching, they are busy, they're an owner, they've got 30 minutes that they can devote. We're talking about creating content, chopping it up, posting it again, doing outreach, all that stuff. How is a busy MSP owner to do such things?
Yeah, so you can do LinkedIn in 30 minutes a day if you've got a plan, but I'll give you the highlights of what that plan is in a week. So number one, 2 posts a week, right? 2 posts, and don't overthink them, because I'll just say it, sorry for swearing. The more you think about them, the shitter they get. Yeah, so the more you obsess about them, the more worse they get, because you sanitize them basically. I would optimize your profile as a one-off, and I would make a regular daily routine of connecting with exactly the people you want to talk to. Every day, connect with a few people, 5, 10, every single day. So you've got the right people coming in. Then it's about, okay, I've done that. Half an hour of my day spent connecting. I've got another half an hour where I'll do 2 posts. Now I've got 3 half-an-hour slots to start conversations. And if that's all I can do, one of the best messages I've done is ask people one question, and it's might have something for you. Are you looking to get X? Question. And people will reply yes, no, or ignore you. But if you do that, you will actually get some conversations there and then.
So looking to get more, hey, curious, Dean, you're looking to get more leads on LinkedIn, right? Could be something as that, right?
Yeah. If it was a law firm, and it's like, okay, you're targeting law firms that are growing, for an example, spotted you're growing the firm. Are you looking to make sure that they don't bottleneck on your infrastructure or something like that? We'd have to map out what that sentence is, and that's where the killer time is. That's what makes LinkedIn work, really, is figuring out that sentence, and then it all works.
Yeah. You got time for one more, Dean? I know we're over. You, Jonathan, Phyllis, team, have you guys got time for one more? Alan?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
I'm just curious with the research part of it. You know, you mentioned a great thing is identifying those moments in time for a company, right? You know, they've opened a new office, there's head count turnover, whatever it is that says, hey, this is a great time to reach out, right? How do you manage that? I mean, are you doing some monitoring? Is it tools used at all?
So LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for an example, you can map out all of the companies in your vertical within a 35-mile radius from your business, for an example, if that was your thing. If you save those companies into Sales Nav will either email you or alert you every single day to a change that's gone on with those companies. So you can literally get an alert from LinkedIn. And I'll go one step further. If you go full fat LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you can actually track them observing and looking at you, and LinkedIn will warn you and say, these people have got moderate intent towards you. You should be talking to them now. So Sales Nav will show you that.
That's pretty incredible. Yeah. And I mean, assistants, using this like versus an owner, like, is it, should owner be doing this? Like, how do you
I do it myself. Even now, but I have to do it myself because I'd be a lousy trainer if I didn't. But what I would say is it's important the owner understands this stuff before you delegate this stuff, because otherwise what happens, it's like hiring an agency. You're going to pay them to learn this stuff. And atypically, because they won't learn it instantly, within like 2 months, you'll fire them because basically they didn't get anything. You need to know how it works and then go, how do I delegate this?
Look, Jonathan, I think what that last was gold, because Alan, please validate, man, unless you're a MSP that the owner understands the sales process, hiring someone to go figure it out. I've seen work, conservatively 0 out of 0 times, and it's that you have to be able to, have some command over what you're doing before you throw it over the wall and say, hey, this is how we do it. Let me show you.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many important techniques that are in here. If the owner doesn't understand it and can't put KPIs or measurements around it, how do you know you're succeeding along the way? So yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. Dean, this was awesome. Can't wait to have you certainly at Write a Boom. I know we're going to be doing a lot with you there. Boot camps and breakout sessions. It's going to be awesome.
I might even get somebody a lead in the room if they'll let me have their LinkedIn.
Oh,
that would be awesome.
Wow. That's very cool.
Alan's already volunteered.
Very cool.
Alan's in. All right. Well, you all, first off, everybody that stayed a little late, thanks so much again for all your time. We'll look forward to doing this again next week. Dean, again, thanks a million. Alan, thanks for co-hosting. Same, Jonathan. Phyllis, as always, great seeing you, and have a great few weeks off on PTO.
Thank you.
So maybe, Jonathan, I'll be coming back to maybe sit in here a few times if you're open to it.
Please do. I'd be more than happy. This has been great. Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. See y'all. Take care.
If you're in the Write a Boom community but not in our Discord yet, you're missing where the real conversation happens. Join community.writeaboom.com to access cybercall discussions, upcoming CPFs, boom camps, and early access to what's coming next. If you want to stay close to what's actually happening in the MSP security space, I'll see you there.